Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Washing Up. Once again, I am Chris.
And I'm Christy.
And that barking outside is our dog Leo. And it's wonderful to be back for episode 2. Now, episode 1 was really well received. Actually, I was really happy with a lot of the social media mentions.
It's just nice to think that our craziness is enjoyed by other people.
It is indeed. And I think especially we do have to doff the cap, as it were, to the wonderful duo at the Cooling Rack.
Indeed. Without them, this podcast literally would not exist.
Literally, it wouldn't exist. And especially for giving us a shout out, I believe, as they refer to it in the business that we hereby call show. And I'd like to thank especially Tegan Higginbotham again. Congratulations for pronouncing my name right.
It was great.
However, Paul Vitruvian Man.
Oh dear.
He said I raged about this for 15 minutes.
It probably was 15 minutes, give or take. And that didn't include what went on during the week.
I was about to say it wasn't 15 minutes. It was a good 5.5 hours, Paul. 5.5 hours. But I'm over it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to bastardise your name at all. So on we go to this week's episode, and wow.
It's like the sweary canary avian flu just infected the whole shed.
Everyone was suffering a bit of sweary canary, except as they put it out on the podcast and we talked about in person, the sweary canary herself.
I just have a feeling that her sweariness was even too much for the tent this week. Like, if that's everyone's level, she's just letting C-bombs and whatever bombs drop throughout the tent.
I'd like to think that there's just a reel somewhere, like a gag reel or the edits, and they edited, it seemed like almost nothing out of this week's episode. It just seemed they just let it go. But I'd like to think that there is a sweary canary highlight reel just off to one side somewhere that we can, a bit like Cinema Paradiso, all the love scenes edited out. It's all the swearing scenes of the sweary canary, and it's just a beautiful reel.
On another thought, right? What if Fiona just dabbles in a cult, on the side, and she has voodoo dolls of everyone and was getting them all to swear during the show, just to take the heat off her.
Every time she pokes one, there's like, fuck!
Yes!
Fuck! Just off into the side of the tent.
Exactly.
That's a good. I like your theories. You have solid theories all the time.
I do.
And it was really Innuendo City Limits, both on the show and, of course, in Cooling Rack World. I mean,
Tegan had me when she was talking about wanting to wrap her mouth around Noel's buns, his meaty buns.
So we had in the tent, we had a hole's a hole, wetter is better, Noel complaining that he couldn't get it up, and Matt actually giving him some advice on that. Kudos to Matt. And, of course, Maggie's 7 slits, which was interesting. And I'm sure there's fan fiction coming.
I'm just imagining Maggie with 7 bits of bread draped around her doing the seven
veils dance.
The 7 veils dance. The 7 slits of bread. Just sexy Maggie beer.
Sexy Maggie beer and the 7 slits dance.
Slitty Maggie beer.
And Cooling Rack, of course, as we said, they were emboldened. I want to say they were emboldened, and you always say that Tegan is, of course,
the voice of the people.
The voice of the people, and she did open up by saying that Noel's buns looked really, really good.
Oh, they did. They looked really, really good.
There were some quality grade A Tasmanian buns.
Yes, having a moment there.
Having a moment. Okay, you have your moment over there, because then later on, Paul, of course, used lines like they're a bit small for me. Yeah.
Well, and personal taste when it comes to buns.
And then the look on Maggie Beer's face when she wrapped her lips around his hole, which was then followed by, for me, the worst line of the whole podcast. And the worst line of the whole podcast was when Paul verbatim, I'm over it, I swear I'm over it, when Paul verbatim said the line about tossing the salad. Now, I'm sorry, Paul, but that's a step too far. This is... I don't know if you're aware.
Yeah.
Is baking.
Bake off.
There is no place for salad in baking.
Exactly.
You need to come up with another filthy innuendo based around the concept of baking. I expect better from my media personalities, and that one I'm judging you harshly on. Salad.
Indeed. Don't make friends with salad.
No, you don't make friends with salad.
Don't make bakes with salad.
No. Who bakes with salad?
Who bakes with salad? idiots.
Which actually does link in quite nicely to something we're about to talk about, burgers. So but we'll come back to that in 1 minute, because I have one more reference that Mr. Vitruvian verbatim Vahoho made. Mm. And it was where he referred to Amel. Now, I'm a very sheltered individual of the world, and I can only assume personally he was talking about legendary Australian entertainer Reg Livermore and his wonderful ballerina character of Amel Nitrate. And I, for one, am pleased to see 70s vaudeville coming back to broadcasting and podcasting.
I know you are, but darling, after this podcast, I'll explain to you the link between Amel and just letting things go. Similar to how I explained felching to my older sister.
Yeah, that was a moment for all concerned, wasn't it?
It was. We've got it on we've got photos of it, so I'll have to dig those up.
Yeah, there's an expression that... Anyway, let's just keep moving on here, because we're delving into realms we don't necessarily want to go into. Now, on to the bake-off itself, and a question that sort of was raised on the cooling rack, which is, was this week really a bread week? Mm-hmm. Now they obviously do agree it was a bread week, and overall it's a bread week. But you know what challenge we're about to rip to pieces here. We're about to tear burgers to pieces.
Which is sad, because I like a good burger.
I like a good burger too, but...
I mean, our opinions of what a good burger is, I'm more of a Paul school of thought that burgers are sacred, you just keep them simple.
Bacon makes everything better.
No, don't put bacon on burgers. Bacon's fantastic, but not burgers.
I put chorizo on a burger too.
I know, which is disappointing.
It's not disappointing, it's delicious. Bacon and chorizo on a burger.
It's not a burger then, it's a bacon and chorizo roll.
What's the difference?
Burgers have a burger in them, a burger patty. Bacon and chorizo are not a burger patty.
Yeah, see, this is the problem with this challenge, is defining what it is. And I think there are a couple of issues to note. I hate saying this because I've been mocking his name through the start because in payback, but I agree with Paul. A lot of people were carried through on the strength of the content of... I judge people, not by the quality of their burger, of their buns, but by the content of their meat. And that's what seemed to happen in the tent this week.
Yeah, I mean, everyone put up good bakes in terms of their bread, and there was only that slight crumbly issue with Jeremy, which just set him slightly apart. But when you're coming to the contents of burgers, I mean, these guys put up some pretty awesome stuff, but it's not baking. No,
and that's kind of where we sort of sit. Now, again, Paul referenced by saying it's a sandwich, son. And it really was a bit like, is a hot dog a sandwich? The legendary internet question. Is a burger sufficient for a baking challenge? Now, for me, I wanted to most try Sweary Canary's burgers, much like Paul did.
I love Fiona. I think that was a good put together, but I was really impressed by Noel's burger. Like, it just looked delish.
It did, but one thing they've both got in common is you weren't looking at them and thinking to yourself, I want to try that bread.
Bun, yeah.
It was all about the filling. I thought that the salmon patty that Fiona made was outstanding. Noel's contents looked incredible, but it was about the contents.
This is where I think the challenge could have been adjusted to be more about the bun and less about the whole overall, and particularly the contents. Is that, what if Matt, Pitbull Matt, pulled on his lamb endorsement, made some lamb patties. He was in charge of the contents, right? He could have had his lamb patties. He could have had a nice mint sauce or something fancy like that. Some caramelised onion, fancy stuff, all there, made by Matt Moran. He goes, okay, your challenge is to make the perfect bread to burger this. Burger my meat. And just put my meat between your buns. That's what Matt should have put out there. They could have made little sliders and then maybe give them a bit of creative and say, okay, make one slider of Matt's meat and then make your own one, and then make a vegetarian one to really screw with everyone.
Why would you make a vegetarian one willingly?
Because there are vegetarians in the world, and who knows, someone might have made something delicious.
Must we care?
You obviously don't, my dear.
I put chorizo on everything, like I care. This is you don't win friends with salad and the vegetarian thing. It's bad memories. You know it is bad memories.
Move along, dearest.
I can't move along, but James, for me as well, actually typified this issue because, well, first of all, he burger-splained. Where he got Matt Moran and Maggie Beer there. Have you ever had Japanese burgers? And they said yes. And then he continued to explain what they were to these two very, I know they're not bakers, but two very experienced, well-travelled food people. And he's explaining what he's doing after they tell him, yes, we know what you're doing, and furthermore say to him, you may not want to cut that up. And eventually they told him what to do, but he still felt the need to burger-splain. But the bigger issue was they then, and Tegan brought this up, they then told him there was too much bread. It's bread week. How is there too much bread in bread week? You don't hear that if you're making ciabatta.
There's too much bread in your
they
ciabatta.
They bring a ciabatta loaf out. Alvin wouldn't have coped in British Bake Off last season.
There's too much bread in your cake.
He produces a ciabatta and they're like, there's too much bread in that. How can you have a bread week when you criticise them for having too much bread? It was mind-boggling. And even their own personal examples typify the issue, which was that Tegan described an amazing homemade burger. And by the way, guys, next time we're in Melbourne, feel free to hook us up there, Tegan, with some burgers. I'd really appreciate that because they sounded stunning, but it was all about the meat patty. It wasn't about the bread. It was all about the meat patty.
Yeah. I just want to bring something up as well. I'm loving this place dropping. The delightful, nonchalant, show-offy arrogance of, I've been to, I like a good pizza, but it's got to be made in New York, sweetie darling. Or, it's the Chicago people mistake deep dish, a pizza lasagna for actual pizza. It's terrible, sweetie darling. And, I've been to Nevada.
I've been to insert place name here.
Yeah. And
remember when I was near Area 51?
Oh, yes, darling.
The probing that took place. Oh, for weeks they probed me.
Luckily, they hooked me up with some amyl. I'll explain that to you later.
I don't get that reference. I just don't get that reference. But part of that story then was Paul talking about the toast sandwich.
I've got to try that. I haven't tried one before. Have you done it?
No, I haven't done it, but it does sound intriguing. But again, that's all about the filling.
No, but it's all bread.
But it's about the bread. But the toast sandwich concept, which Paul came up with and was talking about, it's all about the filling. Because just biting through the 2 lots of bread, if it was a third bit of bread in the middle, that's 3 lots of bread. It's the texture of the bread in the middle that makes it. It's the bubbles of nothing that make it something. It's the bread. It's the toasted bread in the middle. So it's the content of the... It's not about the bread. It's the texture of the burger still.
Oh.
So it's still...
profound.
All about the middle of the burger. It's what's between the bun that counts. Right? The buns are just containers shaping and holding it together. It's what you put through the middle of it that's important.
Indeed.
And on that note, by the way, when they mentioned the pasta bread roll... I got a glint in my eye, as you saw.
Oh, yeah.
And
I saw that little bit of drill just dribbling down your chin there.
I'm with them. I've done this many times. It's even better when it's something like a spaghetti bolognese and you've got the mince with the pasta. And so then the mince and the sauce soaks into the bread as well, and you have crunchy outside, the fluffy bread, and then you've got the sauce seeping in, and then you've got the pasta, and it's...
It was a real treat when I was a kid, right? Because my mum's, thinks she's from the Depression era, so used everything up.
Lard and drippings?
Oh, we had the drippings tin in the fridge. That was something to be delighted in.
And that was last week.
I know. So, it was really cool to get a spaghetti bolognese sandwich, and it was always better when the bread was fresh.
Well, because it's soft and it's I'm with them.
Or when you get fresh hot chips on fresh bread.
I'm not as big a fan of a chip butty. I'm not as big a fan. I mean, my father loves it. My father's favourite delicacy was whatever he had on his sandwich was to put chicken chips, so the crunchy chicken chips, like a Smith chip, on there as well, and have the chicken chips on there.
We used to do that with salt and vinegar.
Yeah, he did it with chicken chips. He was a big fan of that.
Genius, got to try that.
Yeah, I'll let you two talk it out.
Well, what if we do them for your mum's party this week? Just sort of chicken chip.
We do have to do party food for my mother's birthday. I'm not naming the how old she is, but we do have to do that this week.
60. I'm not good at doing that, am I?
No, you're not very good at doing that, and you can answer to her later.
It's just age.
Yeah, it is just age.
Anyway.
And we'll move on to the baguettes now at this, because this brings up a couple
Oui,
of...
monsieur.
This brings up, yes, oui, monsieur. Now,
These people know their baguettes.
listeners to the podcast of, one episode, although I'd like to pretend it's been years, we've just been doing this show and just osmosis projecting it to everybody.
Remember to record it this time.
Yeah, we actually remembered to hit the record button this time. But listeners to this show from last week will remember that we did bring into question if they've ever been to Paris, because they frequently mention it, but with scant detail. And I thought, baguette challenge, and I'm in my head, I'm going, here we go. This is the week. This is the week where all of this hard work pays off and they finally remember what they did in Paris.
Yes.
And what do I get out of Paul's mouth on the podcast, apart from mispronunciations of my name?
What do you get?
But I feel like if you went to Paris,
Ooh.
you've been to Paris, apparently, allegedly. Surely this is the week that you can speak from experience about the bread.
So now you're thinking not only Tegan but Paul are delusional. They're having a mutual.
I mean, I don't know.
delusion about
He did sort of snap back very quickly and go, "I've been to Paris," when Tegan made fun of him about the Area 51 thing, and but they both seem
Very
quite
defensive.
I don't think either of them really know where they've been. Maybe they watched Getaway when it was on Channel 9 ages ago, and all these places that Katrina Roundtree and co went to, they think they've been there.
Or they could be channeling past lives. They are the occult power couple.
They are the occult power couple, apparently, according to you. Yes, I bow to your expertise. Now, there was the product placement when they started baguettes. So before we even get into the baguettes themselves, there's not really much to say about them. It's more about the fact that they product placed again by talking about the only bakery in Melbourne that they feel is good enough.
I mean, for me, if I was to reverse it and do it for Sydney, I'd just say, Victoire's Bakery at Camaret is also a brilliant French bakery that does beautiful chocolate croissant.
It's all about the pain au chocolat.
Bread. Yeah.
It's all about the pain au chocolat.
Yeah.
See, you're not the only ones who can product place. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I get it. I get why doing it. Because
and of course, the Pie Tin in Newtown, which there's no connection in anything. I just love the Pie Tin in Newtown.
Just off King Street, just off King Street.
It's just my favourite place to go.
Yeah.
But, so we've got the product placement. We've got, I've been to Paris, but I've never been to me issue coming up here, which, by the end of this run, I suspect I'm going to have a song written. But it comes down to the filling, and again, they raised a baguette which was then full of things.
Nuts and bolts. And
I don't have an issue regarding, nuts, but I don't want my baguettes filled with anything.
I just want to put butter on them and just crunch that, or camembert, like nice melty brie on a good hunk of baguette. You just get your face around it. It's great.
So
Can't do that when you got a nut.
You wrap your lips around a long thin baguette and start munching away?
As you well know, my dear.
It's innuendo week, and
A nice cheesy baguette.
anyway, I think we need to move on to a couple of people within the tent before we get on to the final challenge.
We haven't even done the technical yet.
We
no,
haven't.
we just did then.
We just did the. That's how boring the technical actually was this
Yeah, I
week.
forgot it was there.
It was all about the crunchy ends. That was the thing. The only bit that was really about the baguette was the crunchy ends. Beyond the crunchy ends,
That said, I was so impressed with Antonio pulling out the proper tea towel thing. I've seen that on so many cooking and foodie shows. I'm like, it's good to see it in practice.
and with that, you lead us on to our first segment
Yes.
ever, really ever.
We have a segment.
We have a segment.
That isn't Buchanan's Bucky Boys.
It's not me complaining about my name.
Yeah.
I'm all good. It's this week on Antonio, Boy Genius.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, 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 ding. See, what we felt we needed was a theme song, and Dookie Howser MD...
Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding.
That's the best theme tune, but unfortunately we're not going to pay for the royalties for that, and we don't want to get in trouble with the good people at iTunes. So what we've decided to do instead is, of course, that live production, which, let's face it, it's better than the original. Flawless. It's absolutely...
It's like you're there, back in the 90s.
It's like Neil Patrick Harris is in front of that blue screen.
Indeed.
Indeed.
tapping away in his Commodore 64,
It
wasn't it?
wasn't even a Commodore 64. As you know, collector aficionado, that wasn't even a Commodore 64.
What was it?
It was just a really early IBM. I think it was a 386.
Oh, wow.
But more to the point about this, and I think actually we have a Twitter question this week too, which is, what would Antonio be writing in his Doogie Howser-esque diary about this week?
Yeah.
I suspect it would be something about learning a lot of terms. I suspect it would be a lot of, I wonder what they meant.
See, when he goes, wetter is better, it just took me this flash to this great group called Lady Sings It Better, and they did a lovely little down where it's wetter, under the sea, and it's very innuendo filled and very sexy. It's beautiful.
Well, he did actually comment on Twitter that he got the saying wrong. So he obviously worked that out a bit later. But I think on Antonio Boy Genius this week, we have to address, his bigger brother, Paul. As you'll see from the graphic around this week's episode, we've got a graphic for this week's episode, and it is Paul and his little brother. Mr. Verhoeven. I love you too, Antonio. But he feels that he was robbed of Star Baker by a plain burger. Which again goes back to the idea of it wasn't actually about the bun, it was all about the content.
Yeah.
So.
And he was right. That's breakfast. If you put egg and bacon on something, that's breakfast. I'm not going to a market in the morning and ordering a Cocoa Pop roll. I'm going there ordering
I'd hope
bacon
not,
and egg
I'd hope
roll.
not, because that would be weird.
I reckon it would actually be genius.
All right, if anyone out there wants to try it and give us some feedback, although not blame us for any lawsuits that might possibly follow, we'll definitely take that on board for you. Mm-hmm. But then again, toot toot. We get a win. We get a win in the technical. Anyway, we got a win again in the technical, and Paul expresses his sense of pride.
Yeah.
It's such... You can hear it in his voice.
Yes.
You can hear his care.
He's living vicariously through Mr. Antonio.
And then the discussion about the beetroot and the rum and raisin in the bacon. And I find it interesting as well that Antonio keeps on doing alcoholic things.
Well, wouldn't you? Like, when I was 16, I was, diving into my parents' fridge. There was, a can of Guinness. That's how desperate I was. There was a bloody can of Guinness in the fridge that I, Oh, no, it was a bottle, that's right. And I had some of it, and then I filled water back up, but I keep going back so soon enough. It was just filled with water. I do what he's doing.
I've just learned so much about you. What I'm happy about though is, again, for a 16-year-old, it's not a Bacardi Breezer. It's not a Bacardi Breezer.
No.
And we're happy with this because at least it's a quality alcohol that he's using. But I just like the fact that it's almost an excuse for him to run wild and raid the liquor cabinet. But I was commenting at the time, and I actually tweeted out about how Liesl felt watching the beetroot one get made and then judged before her one. And I actually had a couple of bit of correspondence on Twitter with Liesl about it. And I asked her about how she felt, when did she find out? And she's like, not until that morning that he was doing the same one. And I said about, you coped pretty well with it considering with that look on your face. And her response was, "You have no idea. I swear that kid is a pastry god sent from Planet Patisserie."
I'd like to go to Planet Patisserie.
It does sound like a tasty, tasty planet.
You'd just be living in a day in it.
Although the problem is that we
croissant.
tend to ruin the resources of this planet, and they're not delicious.
I know.
Imagine what it would be like if you could eat the planet.
Great.
Yeah, but it'd be gone in about 5 minutes. Everyone would just start chowing down on the crust, literally on the crust. It would be like a crusty bread roll.
But tasty, tasty good.
It would be. And there are other two people I think we really need to focus on is first of all, Sweary Canary Watch. And good old Sweary Canary. My main feature, apart from her wonderful return to form baking-wise, is that her jumper game, it's on point every week.
Yeah.
She, again, was really, really good.
Yeah, no, Teagues
and White.
And Paul just really... point out some good stuff going on there, with Maggie's Ming the Merciless look.
Yeah, and I think you had a bit of a conversation with Fiona as well about the apron.
Yeah, just wanting to find out where the aprons come from. And her mum makes her aprons.
Mama Sweary Canary.
Mama Sweary Canary.
I know.
To think of just
a Sweary Canary nest.
Sweary Canary nest. Sewing some fucking aprons.
Your fucking apron's not ready yet, darling.
Yeah, it's just sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up.
And something we started, when we were talking last week as well, was Noel. And we have to address Noel, because I love Noel. I really do love Noel.
Everyone loves Noel.
Even
Paul loves Noel now.
Paul briefly loved Noel. There's disdain in Paul's voice again this week about
He'll
Noel.
be back on the Noel train, and none of this Noel shit.
Well, the Noel train is a bit of a steam engine, though. It's a classic.
That's right. It's the Zeppelin. The Noel Zeppelin.
It's an old Zeppelin. It's not a steam train. It's a Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
It's flying. It's still flying high over New Jersey. It hasn't hit the tower yet.
Good.
We're not yelling out, "Oh my God, the humanity!" just yet. As much as it pains me, it does pain me, but. They were right. I thought Noel was gone. I actually tweeted during the episode, Noel's in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, I thought he was in trouble, but and I love Jeremy because he gives me the excuse of Jeremy's bacon. But if I had to pick out of one of them to stay in the tent, I would have picked Noel too.
Yeah, see, I mean, I was 50-50 on it because I really wanted Noel to stay. I really want Noel to stay. But you also can't. This isn't, and they've made this point a few times on the cooling rack. You can't just cruise in this series like you could in British Bake Off, where you could just sort of cruise through and, oh, look, I'm Selassie and I'm in the last four because I've got a wonderful personality. And he does. I love Selassie. But he cruised.
Yes,
he
cruised.
Absolutely cruised.
He jumped on the Fair Star and just took that baby to the port.
He was on Fair Star, the fun ship, before the bacteria outbreaks, and jumped off just at like Port Vila.
Yeah.
But I think that you can't cruise. And Noel, after a really strong out of the gates, and Tegan commented on the strong out of the gates, he's been cruising a little bit. I think he was saved by a rope ladder made out of all of his ribbons. I think he put all his ribbons together that he's won over the years baking and used those to crawl out. But I think if he has another one of those, although this week's vintage week, so Noel looks like he is potentially the only person who lived through any of what was coming up.
Indeed.
So he should have an advantage.
Unless you're in my household where that was just the norm.
That was just the norm. It's, in many households across the land, it still is. Now, for the showstopper, it was almost like they decided to make up for the lack of bread in the first one by everything was bread, including the container you put it in.
I want you to cook your bread in bread and bake it with bread, and you have to make an oven out of bread and bake it in the oven with bread. That's how I'm envisioning it.
I was just, by the end of the episode, I just thought that the last challenge was you have to wear a bread suit when you present as well. Bread suit, bread tie, bread top hat, bread tails. All of those sorts of things would have been very appealing.
It's bread-tastic.
Would have been bread-tastic.
And I love bagels.
I'm a fan of a good bagel.
It's like it goes pretzels and bagels and Paul, a bad pretzel. Oh, there's nothing worse than a bad pretzel.
I'll tell you what. I'll trade you. I'll make you some pretzels if I get some of those burger patties.
Yeah.
I'll make some pretzels. I make a good pretzel. I'll make some pretzels and you make some burger patties and we'll trade. Exchange.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a pretty good, go-to if we were in the mood for a bit of a pretzel, and that's from Aldi. Aldi do a nice little frozen pretzel, and it's a nice backup when you just want a pretzel, but you're not able to actually find a proper one.
It is better than the quality at the beer cafe, which is kind of creepy. Kind of creepy that the Aldi bought pretzels, but. Again, I think that I make a good pretzel. I make a good lot of things. We'll trade. We'll talk. My people will call your people. In the showstopper, I thought that Sweary Canary and Olivia were outstanding, and Olivia's. And just a quick note, the railing against wholemeal and four white bread made me just care about Olivia a hell of a lot more. What a woman! What a woman!
Spidey sense is tingling for Livs.
She's kind of like, again, you've got Sweary Canary and Neve's sort of got her little offsider sort of sidekick.
No.
And no, Olivia, and you've got the two of them together, and it's just it's wonderful. And they can alternate weeks. One of them's the superhero, one of them's the sidekick, and they switch and swap. It's great.
I thought you just meant maybe her swearing sidekicks, like the cursing cockerel Noel, like that.
Well, the fact that Noel swore.
Yeah. And
I think I tweeted in capitals.
But with emphasis.
This episode has now reached peak television with Noel swearing at the end.
Emphatic.
I didn't realise he knew those words.
Oh, it's just good I love busting through your first presumptions about people.
It's like when you hear your parents swear for the first time.
Oh, my mum was the funniest. She'd come down and it's like a ton of bricks before you said bloody or anything like that. And then one day, it was like a party and I was like 12 years old. Mum had a couple of shandies and lo and behold, the F-bomb slips out. And I'm like, what? What has just happened here?
Well, for me, it wasn't so much about my parents swearing for the first time. It was more about my grandmother for the first time because, you know, as I've described, my grandmother was Hyacinth Bouquet. And there was just one day we were talking and she just let rip with about 4 swear words. And I had never heard this, and I was 26, 25 at the time.
Wow.
And she's just let rip.
That would have been...
It was staggering. It was absolutely staggering.
Did you get your ice skates and pop down to hell for a quick session?
I thought about it.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
Did you drop
but
a
she was too
fucking
busy.
hell?
She was too busy swearing. And we have to talk about, apart from the fact they both nailed it, I actually think that Fiona, by the way, if her bagel was, if her not her bagel, her baguette was a little bit better. I think she came 7th or 6th in the baguette challenge. If she'd come 4th in that baguette challenge, I think she'd been Star Baker because her bagels were incredible.
I mean, the thing that gets me about the bagel challenge, though, and I'm all for, you know, competing against the best, and I agree perfectly with Tegan and Paul when they brought up that it should, any advice, any things to make things better should come from the competitors. It shouldn't come from the judges because, you know, like Matt, you know, using a bit of his stance or power there to request Gruyere on top of the bagels and telling people that they should pop their yeast in the sun.
I think they're two different things. I think they're two different things. I've gone back and forth on this a lot, and I actually think that I agree with them with regards to the cheese and the being a bit more helpful than a Paul Hollywood.
Yeah.
I agree on that regard, and I took it a bit further, and I think that it's not so much about him requesting food. He sets the challenges. He's already requesting the food. He tells them what to make, so he's not going to make something he doesn't want to taste. So
Yeah, but
he already sets the challenge.
Yeah.
That's one thing. If he's helping with possible flavour discussion, okay, fair enough. However, the telling Jeremy to put his yeast outside in the sun, that was technical baking.
Yeah.
I don't agree with giving the technical baking comments. Think about Great British Bake Off, where Mary Berry in the last few weeks of challenges sets them a challenge where she just gives them a one-line instruction. Make this. And no further instruction. You have to know how to do it.
But there's still 8 people in the tent. There's still 8 people and they're still really high quality. And I guess I don't agree with it. And I can see that, you know, I was trying to give Jez a leg up. But it's just, you know, if you can't bake, what are you doing in Bake Off? If you can't make bread, why are you in Bake Off? The first thing, if I was going on to Bake Off, the first thing I'd be perfecting is my bread and my cakes.
And your innuendos.
And the innuendos.
Because apparently you really need those.
Oh, good. Now, Tegan, I just have to agree with you about the visualisation you made of Paul Hollywood. When he's double rolling those buns and you just like, I want those on my nips. Like, that is voice of the people right there, people. Voice of the people. Like,
I've lost her.
My friends and I were sharing baking videos at one point because there was these like 2 quite... And they weren't overly attractive English chaps baking bread, but their hand techniques, that just made them a 10. Like, just the way they fondle these little mounds of dough, just... Oh.
I think we need to give you a moment again, aren't we?
I'll just go take my moment later.
But I think that the Paul Hollywood thing for me is not so much about how sexy Paul Hollywood is when he makes bread. It's more about the thing you don't get, which is what we love about Paul Hollywood, apart from obviously you love his hand technique and visualising it, is when Paul Hollywood, and it was alluded to again, Tegan alluded to it about when she referred to him talking about his sex eyes. But our favourite one is when he looks at them and gives them the most nondescript piece of advice in history. When he'll look at them and he'll look at the way they're baking and he'll go, interesting, and then he'll pause and he'll go, you know, this could be great or it could be disastrous. And well done, Paul. You know, well done, Paul, because that says Absolutely nothing, and yet seems to say everything at the same time.
Indeed.
So I think that's what's lacking. It's that whole "you better work this out for yourself" thing. Wouldn't it be fascinating to see what happens if you do it that way?
Yes.
But that doesn't seem like what Matt Moran's going to be doing.
No, and that's cool. Like I've liked Matt Moran. I've liked his appearances on MasterChef. I like his appearances on Lamb Ads.
I like his appearances in his own restaurant because I love Aria.
I like him popping up in people's music videos, just providing a couple of raps and one-liners.
You really appreciate his work on the song Timber. You know, all of those sorts of things.
Down. Yeah. It's just more like you just need to finesse it a little bit there, Moran. Just pull it back. Just like Pitbull, you know, he knows when to come in, when to stop. He knows the harder you are, the faster you fall. I'm trying to remember the lyrics.
Let's not.
Okay.
Let's not try to remember Matt Moran lyrics.
Okay.
Now, obviously, Jeremy did go home, and it means that for the last time.
Leaving.
Well, why is Jeremy leaving? I mean, the way that I put it is that Jeremy's bagels weren't up to scratch. That's kind of why he's going home.
Yeah.
It's kind of why he's going home. Very hit or miss, Jeremy. Very hit or miss. And I liked it when he was hitting because he made some amazing stuff. But it was just, Bread Week was just a disaster from moment one for poor Jeremy.
It is. You've got to have a good relationship with bread because yeast is a living organism, and I love baking. Right, it's the only kind of baking I can do is bread, cakes, biscuits. They hate me. I hate them. I must have done something horrible in a past life. But bread and I have a good relationship, and you've got to have an affinity with bread. You've got to have an understanding of the yeast and what it needs. And unfortunately, Jeremy just hadn't developed that.
I love when you get to that voice.
Yeast, Al?
Yes, when you get to your voice like you sort of, in a 1970s Australian commercial.
Oh, yes. You know, just like if I was selling some Meadowlee.
Oh, some Meadowlee. And I did indeed. I hope other people joined me in it, but I did tweet to Olivia that you ought to be congratulated. #Meadowlee. And I think we need to get back on that bandwagon, people. I think we need to get that going, and we need to really push that. Now, at the end of this episode, the cooling rack Tegan closed off with a discussion about her Morning Teal fundraiser that she's got going for ovarian cancer.
Sounds fantastic.
Sounds wonderful. It does
not
crush
ovarian
us.
cancer, but raising money for research.
It does crush us that we're, of course, not in Melbourne, and that's kind of a bit of an issue for us. But I believe there was an idea that you put forward, which I actually think was a really good one, and hopefully can assist with the fundraising for it, even though we can't be there in person.
I mean, there's a few drawbacks. One, we're not in Melbourne, which is disappointing, first of all, because Melbourne's awesome, but secondly, we couldn't attend this event as easily as it would be liked. Blah, 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 blah. Indeed, let's move on to my next point, which is, you know, they're getting the great bakers, you know, like they know all the ex-bakers, getting them involved, people who can actually bake stuff. That's not us.
I can bake.
Okay, that's not me. And I was just thinking, how can we get involved apart from eating the tasty, tasty treats? And I can't be there to eat the tasty, tasty treats. So I'm thinking, just bodgy bakes. Like, just like, bake something and take a picture of it, and the bodgier it is, the more money you have to donate to make restitution to the baking gods.
So basically, a little bit like on an extra slice. where they send in the photos of their bakes in the later season. Again, we're going to stop talking about spoilers for that because we know that some people haven't seen it. Thank you for pointing that out, Paul and Tegan. But where this week it was the Highland cow, wasn't it? It was the cow.
Or people's dogs.
Or dogs.
And
it was varying degrees of success or failure as to people attempting to bake these creatures. And it's a bit like that. Is bake something that's, you know, you've done your best, you've given it your all, but it's not quite worked out. And rather than just turf it to one side, maybe we come up with the Bodgy Bakes hashtag, for example.
Yeah, and then whatever hashtag Teagues uses for the morning tea. And if they've got a Kickstarter or a fundraiser thing, that we could just donate straight to that, so extra funds go into.
Yep, and then get people to donate money just on Bodgy Bakes and donate to the Morning Teal, fundraising, which is an extremely worthy cause and something that we both really like to be able to support. So it's probably our way. In the next few weeks, we'll make a few more inquiries as to exactly how to make this work. But I think it's a really, really good idea.
Exactly.
Now,
and teal's my colour, you know.
teal is your colour.
Yes, I'm a cool colour person according to the charts. And teal's purple.
According to the Dulux colour chart, or
According to the Dulux.
was it standing in Bunnings,
Yeah.
just sort of getting yourself checked, going definitely teal?
Yes. No, my mum did that. What was that woman's name who was all about deportment back in the 80s?
June Dally Watkins.
Yes, June Dally Watkins.
We've just made a June Dally
Dally
Watkins reference on the same episode you mentioned felching.
The two go hand in hand. But I think it's a good precursor for next week. Not so much the felching, but the June Dally Watkins and the retro week.
And I think retro week will be fascinating. I'll be trying to make, I don't know what yet, but something.
I hope it's got gelatin in it. Like
of course it's got gelatin in it.
Some kind of tureen.
I'm actually thinking the Australian Women's Weekly swimming pool cake.
Oh.
My brother's got a birthday coming up, you know.
Does.
I think I might make the Australian Women's Weekly swimming pool cake this week, and I'll try to get some photos up on the website.
Only if you have a little model of what's his facey doing some Esther Williams.
Esther Williams, ladies and gentlemen, Esther Williams. So I'll actually, that's a good idea. I'll make that this week. So I'm going to make that. So keep an eye on the Twitter for my Australian Women's Weekly cake. Please continue to check us out. Please rate us on it. We are on iTunes, as most of you probably are aware, listening through iTunes, but also through SoundCloud. Please give us a rating. Please keep listening to The Cooling Rack. They're much better at this than we are. They're much funnier than we are, but, you know, we do our best and try. And, I mean, Tegan did try to help us out with one of our issues, which was how does she make that noise? We now know she has to deeply inhale to do it.
She does, yes.
And with that, we'll hopefully find out a bit more about this next week when we get into Classic Bakes.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we'll catch you all later.